Hi everyone, my name is Scott G and I am an alcoholic and I'm coming to you from Afton, Tennessee. That's East Tennessee. Appreciate the opportunity to share my story with you today. My sobriety date is June 21st, 1995. That gives me, for those counting days, which I try not to count days because it's just a day, it gives me 10,451 days today. Sober by the grace of my higher power, who I choose to call God, in the wonderful fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and this amazing program that has helped save my life. I'll start from the beginning as far back as I can remember. I was born in Maine, Portland, Maine, to a typical family. I had one brother and three sisters. Mother and father stayed married till the time of their death. They were 67 years together and married when dad passed. It was a normal family. My dad worked pretty much 60 hours a week to raise five kids. But on Friday nights, he would come home and you couldn't talk to dad on Friday night. He would drink until he passed out. Saturday was a repeat. It'd start in the morning, they'd pass out, take a nap, wake up, drink again, pass out. And then Sunday morning, he was allowed to have just two beers, and that was regulated by my mother. She kind of kept him on the straight and narrow as much as she could for a while. I do have one sibling now that's back in the program. She's been struggling, but she just celebrated a year. And I have another sibling that, God bless her, I don't know how she does it. She's a full-blown alcoholic, but functioning. I would say this, that my story is a little different than some. I've been through a lot of grief and heartache, but the message is still true. And it says, my message that I try to convey when I speak is, don't drink no matter what. And I'll tell you how I get there. So I graduated from college back in the 90s, and I immediately was headhunted while in college to be a programmer for a national defense company as a computer programmer. I took this job, and it was a third shift job, and I thought that would give me plenty of time because I like to, drink and party. That would give me plenty of time to do what I wanted to do and then make it to work. And I kind of worked alone in this little cubicle. Back in the 90s, there was still kind of think tanks, and we were working on silicone chips. So we did the suits, the big white suits where you donned it and you had to go through gas chambers to get the static electricity and hook into a desk. But once you were in, you were in. It was an ordeal if you had to use the restroom. But that allowed me time to show up pretty much drunk or drinking, make it to my desk, and nobody was watching me because it was third shift. I can remember the day like it was yesterday. The manager came in to do a surprise visit and a review, which I didn't know was coming, and needless to say, I was in no shape to do that. Um, believe I worked the rest of the night, but I went home ashamed and figured that that was not a safe place for me to be at because my drinking had escalated from, which I'm sure some of you can relate. It was no longer a want thing. It was a need thing. I had to drink to keep from shaking and trying to get through my day. So I did what some alcoholics do. I figured it was time to run. I jumped in a car and I went to Florida. And I did the geographical cure. Of course, in Florida, I realized that that was the place for me. Nobody really knew me. I could start over. So I sent a message back. They didn't have email back then, but I sent a message back to another coworker that I quit and I'm not coming back. I hung around for a little bit and then I took a job in a bar as a bartender, which, if you're a drinker like I was, it's a great place to go. Because when you're bartending, they always want to buy the bartender a drink. My drinking quickly escalated to the point that even though I was showing up for work, I was messing things up pretty bad. Came a point where I realized I couldn't work in a bar anymore. I needed to leave there. I immediately resigned and kind of did what a lot of us, I guess, did over the years. Is I went along haphazardly through the day, just trying to make it through. A little drink in the morning, a little drink in the afternoon, and then partying at night with friends. When that came to a head, and at this point, I was 25 years old. I was living back with my parents on their couch. My dad came in one day and said, son, you can't live here no more. You need to get a job. You need to get a place to live. So I immediately talked to people that I knew and said, what do I do? And I wasn't talking to people in AA, even though my sister was in and out. I was talking to people that I was partying with. And one of them was a cousin that says, I know this great girl and she's got her own thing going, and let me set you up with her. Maybe you two can hit it off. And it sounded like a good thing for me. I figured, let's meet in a bar. So I meet this person in a bar on a blind date. And I should have known right then and there that things weren't going to work out, but I didn't. As the waitress came around, asked who wanted a drink. Of course, I ordered my four fingers of Absolute with a little bit of Midori just to change the color, and she ordered a beer. When the waitress was making her second pass by, shortly thereafter, I said, hey, bring me another one of these. And I said to the lady, do you want another beer? And she said, oh, no, I'm good. And I noticed she'd take like a sip out of her beer. Well, by the time the waitress was bringing me my fifth drink, I watched this blind date young lady that I was set up with send the beer back. She drank about half of it and asked for a Coke or asked for an iced tea. And of course, my mind, six drinks in, thought she's getting a Long Island iced tea. This is really going to work out. Well, needless to say, she didn't get a Long Island iced tea. She got a regular iced tea. Now I was puzzled. And I said to her, I think I was on my ninth drink and feeling no pain. And nine drinks sounds like a lot, but when you drank a lot, it really didn't affect me as much as you would think. I said to her, are you okay? You're not feeling well? She said, no, I feel fine. I said, well, look, I noticed that you sent your beer back, and we're kind of here to have a good time. And she goes, oh, no, I'm having a real good time. I said, okay, why did you send the beer back? And this was the first red flag. I don't know. If you're an alcoholic like me, I find a reason to turn those red flags into green flags and let's go. And she said, I was starting to feel it. I said, what does that mean? She says, well, I was starting to feel a little out of control on a half a beer. Big, huge sign. I ignored it, got another drink, quickly moved in with her, because, that's what we do. Attached myself to her rising store because she was working at a bank, and moved into this beautiful condo she had. So as I'm living in the condo, she gave me the same speech my dad had. Said, boy, it's great to have you here, but what are you doing for a job prospect? And right across the street, there was a car dealership. So I said, you know what? I'll go over there and I'll sell cars. So wrong thing to do. The car business is full of alcoholics and addicts. And boy, the hours were long. It was within walking distance. And I could talk pretty well. So I was pretty successful in selling cars. Well, fast forward about 3 months, this young lady that I'm dating, and now we're almost on a year, decides she wants to be an instructor for a country western line dancing. I'm from Maine. I don't even know what country music is, let alone line dancing. I've seen this achy breaky thing on TV, but I have no idea what country western line dancing is. So now she's going to a bar every Wednesday to teach this class, and she's encouraging me to come. Keep in mind, the whole time I'm drinking at work and kind of hiding things, and I could go home late at night. I had to work real late, but be out with the guys, and she'd be sleeping. Well, I started going to this bar to see her country western dance, and she would buy a pitcher of beer and put it on the table. Well, while she was out there teaching, I would drink the pitcher of beer, and she'd come back to get a drink, and it'd be gone. She said, well, what happened? Oh, some of your friends came over, and I gave them a couple of drinks. One pitcher turned into two pitchers, and as you can imagine, a few short months later, she's coming home with I think it's time for you to leave. And I said, what's wrong? She says, you drink too much. And I said to myself, man, this is a girl that met me in a bar, saw me drinking that night. We're almost 2 years into this. She had to know I drank. Another red flag. So my first thought as I'm grabbing the trash bag and throwing what little bit of clothing I have in it is, now I can go hang out with my friends and I can drink whenever I want. I don't have to worry about hiding. So I left there and I went over to one of my buddy's house, and I showed up the next morning for work, and there's the general manager waiting for me and said, come in. And he had become friends with my girlfriend. And he said, I don't need you here today. I said, what are you talking about? He says, you smell like a brewery. So I don't understand. What does that mean? He says, did you drink all night or are you still drinking now? I said, no, I broke up with my girlfriend. Of course he knew. And he says, you need to slow down. You probably need to get some help. Well, that was not what I needed to hear. But he did say that I could go home for the day. So I immediately went home, started drinking. I think I lasted 2 or 3 days before I went back to work. At this point, I was doing finance for the dealership, so they needed me as bad as I needed them. I went back to work. I started doing pretty well at work. Slowed down a little bit on my drinking because there was some fear that was coming. I still had a drink to stop the shakes, but I wasn't drinking to oblivion every night. But I made the grave mistake of going out with all the girlfriends of my ex-girlfriend. And of course, she caught wind of it. And when she caught wind of it, she came to work and says, you really need to get some help. And I was pretty well at the end of my end. And she said, you should think about going to AA. There's a meeting right up the street at the 24-hour club. And my sister, who had been talking to me a little bit, was back in the program. I think she was a year or 2 years sober at this point. I said, I'd go, but I'm not going with my sister and I'm not going alone. And she says, well, I'll take you. It's okay. So I walk into this meeting room, not knowing what to expect. I sit down in the, what I like to call the half-stepper seats, the ones along the wall, so I could hide. And they started opening the meeting, and my ex-girlfriend sitting beside me. And they asked, which we do at our meetings, are there any visitors? And then they asked, are there any newcomers? Well, I saw the visitors stand up and give their name. And they said, are there any newcomers? So I thought I had to stand up. I stood up and I said, I'm Scott, and just rolled off my tongue, and I'm an alcoholic. And right then and there, tears started flowing from my face. I had no idea they were coming. I don't know how it happened. All I knew is it was the first time I thought it. It was the first time I said it. And for some reason, I knew it was true. I was fortunate that there was a lot of old timers in there. And keep in mind, this is almost 30 years ago. Back then, they were pretty brutal on people. I remember this one lady saying, you haven't lost enough. You still have a watch on your wrist. And another lady saying, I know how much a garden hose holds. She apparently would go out during the day and fill her garden hose with vodka. And then when her and her husband were sleeping in bed, she would get up in the middle of the night and say, I have to water the plants in the moonlight. That's when they get their water. She would go out and she would drink vodka out of this hose. And I thought to myself, I don't know what I'm doing in here. That is not my deal. I'm nowhere like these people. But there was one gentleman that said, you don't have to lose everything. You're probably spiritually bankrupt. And that was the first time I heard the word spiritually. And he says, just the fact that you're here is a good start. What you need to do is you need to get a sponsor and you need to start working these steps. I had no idea what the steps were. Behind him on the wall were two roll-up shades pulled down, and one side had 12 traditions and one side had 12 steps. So as other people are sharing, I'm reading the steps and I'm thinking, okay, I already do that. Yes, I've done that. I don't need to do that. Of course, I'm taking inventory of stuff that I think I need. And, I've been doing so well at running my life. Of course, I knew what was best. So as the meeting got over and I started to walk outside, this one gentleman followed me out and says, you're coming back, right? I said, honestly, I don't know. He says, do you feel like drinking? I said, I don't feel like it, but I think I'm going to anyway. And he says, well, make yourself a promise. Even if you drink tonight, come back tomorrow. We still want you here. And that was the first time in a long time that somebody said, we want you here and please come back. Because I had been uninvited to my parents' birthday parties. I'd been uninvited to Christmas parties. My friends that were, quote unquote, my drinking buddies were going out after work on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and I was going with them. They weren't telling me where they were going anymore. Because I was the guy that, when it was time to leave, there's more alcohol. Why am I leaving? And they were, half a drink here or a drink there. And I'm 4 or 5 in saying, what are you guys waiting on? This is why we do this. See, I didn't know it wasn't right to plan your Friday night on Monday. And then when that planning for what are we going to do on Thursday, well, Wednesday is ladies' night. My whole week's planned on Monday, but I'm broke and I got paid on Friday. I didn't know that wasn't normal. I didn't know it wasn't normal to come home, have no idea how you got there from a blackout, wake up the next morning and look through your shade to see if your car was out there. I thought that's what people did. I thought you're making money to have a good time, and having a good time is drinking and partying. It was for a bit. And then when it wasn't, it wasn't. I love the analogy that, I was the last person to find out that I was an alcoholic and that I had a drinking problem. Other people knew, they could point it out to me, but I didn't want to hear it. And until I walked into the room and somebody said to me, keep coming back, I had no idea that I was still welcome places. So fast forward to, I'm a little bit sober. When I say a little bit sober, I got a sponsor. I'm half working the steps. I did 1, 2, 3 on my knees with another gentleman. Started to do a little bit of 4. I'm not going to tell you everything in the 4th step, of course. I'm going to do a 5th step. I can't reveal all this stuff. My ego's still huge. And I'm still thinking that I'm running the show. And I stayed around and I tried to compare rather than identify. And I realized that maybe I'm not done. I'm still young. I was 25 years old, 26 years old. And I said, at this point I was dating a new person who I had met in AA, first year of sobriety, and I'm already dating someone. And I had bought a house and she moved in with me. And it's my 1-year anniversary. I'm supposed to go to this meeting to get the 1-year chip. And I knew I was living a lie. I was in relapse, but I hadn't picked up. And I knew that I was in relapse because all I was thinking about is I'm going to get this chip and I'm going to go drink. I never made it to get the chip. I made it 363 days. And I went back up. And I can tell you what happened. I didn't get involved. I didn't do any of the service work. I didn't work with anybody else. I lied to myself and to my sponsor. And I stopped going to meetings. Doesn't mean I stopped showing up for meetings. Because I can sit in a room and be blank. You guys can be talking and I hear nothing. I went to the meetings. I sat there and I did everything but listen. I planned my day. I reviewed my day. I horsed around with the people to the left and right of me. I took everybody's inventory and judgment, and I left. The only thing that had changed in my life is I wasn't putting the alcohol in my body. I was still trying to run the show, and I was still sick and lost. So I picked up after 363 days. Shortly thereafter, as they say, things don't get better. It got worse real quick. And I ended up talking with my girlfriend at that time, saying, I don't want to do this again. I can't keep living like this. There's got to be a better way. And it was a Friday night at 2:30 in the morning. I asked her to take me to a treatment center. And she took me down to this place called the Willow Treatment Center in Naples, Florida. It's 3:30. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. They're taking me in. They're doing the vitals. And the intake person is saying to me, well, your name's Scott? Oh, yeah. How do you feel, Scott? Oh, man, I feel great, actually. Things are going really well. And, I just need some time off from work and I need to get away. And, I'm going to treat this like a vacation. You don't understand. I'm working 40, 50, 60-hour weeks. And, yeah, I'm drinking too much, but I know I just need to slow that down. So I hadn't admitted yet, and I hadn't completely surrendered, that I was ready to give up. So here it is, and, I'm telling jokes. Friday morning at 3 o'clock, I'm blitzed telling these people jokes, and I'm sure they thought, what is this guy doing? So Saturday, I come to, they put me in this room with 3 other guys, and 2 of them I knew from the meetings. There were people that were bouncing in and out, and somehow they're in this place. So I wake up Saturday morning, and I said to one of them, I said, Phil, what do we do? What do we do today? I've never been to treatment. He goes, oh, I've been to rehab many times. Don't worry. Saturday and Sunday is kind of a free day. We have 1 meeting, and the rest of the time you can go in the pool. There's a hot tub. There's a movie room. I said, what? Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. So now my counselor doesn't come in until Monday morning. I got Saturday and Sunday to hang out with these people and dry out a little bit. Well, Monday morning at 5:30, they have me out there doing my blood pressure, and here comes this lady. She's 6'6". She's German, and her name is Hilda. And Hilda comes walking over and says, "You're the new guy, right? You're Scott." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "How you doing?" Oh boy, I put on that car salesman smile. I said, "Oh, I'm doing great, man. I'm just so happy to be here. And I got to have some time off and super excited about this and getting started on this program. You know, I've been around AA. I know all about AA. I know how this works and I know what I need to do." And she said, "Okay, when they're done with you, come see me in my office. My office is right over there." She walks off and the tech starts laughing. And I said, "What's so funny?" She says, "She's going to have fun with you." I said, "Oh, okay." And then one of the other guys that I'd known from out in the meetings, Ray, I said, "Ray, why is everybody laughing?" She says, "Scott, her nickname is Hilda the Hun. She's brutal." I said, "Oh, she's great. I'm just going to kill her with kindness like I'm trying to sell her a car or something." So I walk in this little room. I kid you not, it is a broom closet. I walk in this broom closet. There's one door and books stacked from floor to ceiling about 6 feet high, and one little desk that looks like it's a school desk. It's tiny with a little chair, no windows. I walk in and she says, "Have a seat." And I look around. There's no place to sit. She's got one chair and there's books there. Oh, where do I sit? She goes, "Oh, you can sit on the floor." I kid you not. There's enough room for my feet. I don't know how I'm going to get my butt down there, but I do. I sit down. She said, "Well, tell me about yourself." I said, "Well, you know, I run this car dealership over here, and we do financing, and they have 7 stores, and I'm kind of over 23 guys, and you know, I didn't know if you noticed in the parking lot, there's a brand new Honda Accord out there. That's my demo. I get a new one every 90 days, and I just bought this house. I got a beautiful girlfriend. And matter of fact, this afternoon they're supposed to be delivering me a new hot tub for recreational factory warehouse. Went in and bought the biggest one they could get." And she said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, why are you here?" I said, "You know, to be honest, I've been working 60, 70 hours a week, and I'm really wore out and tired. And I need some time off. And, you know, how long is this thing?" She said, "This thing?" I said, "Yeah, how long is this program, the treatment program here?" She goes, "Well, some people it's 30 days, but some people stay longer." I said, "But some people leave earlier?" She, "Oh, yeah. And that's my determination, whether you get to leave early or you have to stay longer." I said, "Okay. Well, I'm excited to get started." And she stands up and she walks over to the broom closet door and she shuts the door. And now it's pitch black, but this little light above her head that's kind of shining right on her, and she can't see me because I'm hidden in the darkness between all these books. And she says, "Scott, do you know where you are?" I said, "Of course I do. I'm at the Willow Treatment Center in Naples, Florida." She says, "How's life? Unmanageable?" I said, "No, I'm actually managing things pretty well." I said, "All right, so I'm going to give you a little wake-up call just so you know. When I was pulling in this morning, there was a tow truck out there from the place you work at picking up that car. They took that back. Your girlfriend has already touched base with me and said that she moved out of the house and took everything, and they're not going to be able to get in and bring the hot tub. I don't know if you realize this, but you're in a mental institution and the doors are locked. You cannot leave." I swear right then and there, my heart jumped out of my chest and I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "No, no, you've lost control of your life. Unmanageable? Huh, it's past that. You don't even know how sick you are." I said, but you don't understand. I checked myself in." She goes, "Yeah, but you can't check yourself out." "Well, what are you talking about? I'm leaving." "No, you're not. You open that door, there's 2 guys out there. You can't go nowhere." I sat there on the floor. I saw my whole life flash in front of my eyes, and I said, "What did I get myself into?" And then all of a sudden, just like somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and maybe it was Hilda, I don't know, I realized that I had a pretty serious problem. That this whole facade on the outside may have looked good, but on the inside I was hurting. And it just came over me like a tidal wave of, wow, I am so empty inside. I'm trying to use things, use people, use places to make myself feel better, but I'm drowning myself in alcohol so that I don't have to look at how bad things are. You know, I was the last guy to figure it out. Everybody else kind of knew. So I say this that Hilda was one of the best things that ever happened in my life, not by design, but by my higher power. Because there's 16 different counselors there. Somehow I got this girl that was larger than life and was able to feed me stuff straight. So I go through 28 days of rehab. She's first thing you got to do when you get out of here is you go to a meeting, you get a sponsor. I go to a meeting fresh out of rehab. I walk into this meeting. I sit down. They go through the announcements. This one guy shares. He is dagger through the heart, tells me exactly how I'm feeling. I mean, almost like they called ahead and said, this was this guy. Gave him the ins and outs of Scott. And I heard my story and I heard exactly what I needed to hear at that moment. He shared. He said, thank you. I've got to leave. I got to be at work. And he walked out the door. I sprung up out of my seat. I followed him down the stairs. And I said, hold on, hold on, hold on. Your name is Wade? Yep. I need a sponsor. He said, okay. He says, what are you willing to do? I said, I will do anything. He said, you know, everybody says that, but what are you really willing to do? First of all, how long you sober? I said, this is 28 days today. I just got out of rehab. And I said, they told me to do this, and this is what I'm doing. They told me to get a sponsor, and I'm hoping you'll be that sponsor. Well, he said yes. And he said, call me every night, which I did. And he was a great sponsor. When I say a great sponsor, he knew the value of service work. Day 2, I met him at a meeting, and he introduced me to ashtrays. I never smoked, but he said, your job is to clean the ashtrays. I said, but I don't smoke. He said, even better. You clean the ashtrays. My first resentment. So I clean ashtrays for 5, 6 days, and then I remember going to him saying, you know, this is nasty, this is filthy, this is not helping me. He goes, oh, that's great, because there's something else I need you to do. I said, what's that? He goes, you need to pick up the cigarette butts outside. Are you kidding me? No, pick up the cigarette butts. So I did that for a week, and I went back to him and I says, wait, I'm not, this isn't happening, man. I can't be doing this stuff. And I'm coming here with a shirt and a tie because at this point I went back to work. I'm out there bending down, picking up cigarette butts. He goes, oh, that's beneath you too, huh? Great. So you're the coffee person. That means you get here 45 minutes early. He kept me involved doing that. I went from ashtrays to cigarette butts to coffee to greeter. But one of the best things that he taught me, and this was this 3rd day, 4th day, is he had a group of young guys that he sponsored. There was 5 of us in total. And he made us buddy up. You couldn't drive to the meeting by yourself. If you were leaving work and running late, you still had to stop and pick someone else up. And when I say how great that was, not only did I have someone that I could talk to about how life is, but I could also listen to them and what they're going through. We were kind of on the same plane. And if I had a problem with the way the sponsor was treating me, he said, don't vent to me, vent to him. And I don't want to hear what you guys talk about. I say that was great for me because I got to hang out with these guys and get to know them a little bit. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know if I was a month and a half in or somewhere close to there. I went to pick up Michael at his place, knocked on the door, and he didn't answer. And I looked through the window and I saw his brains splattered on the couch behind him on the wall. He was so depressed, and drinking wasn't an option for him. He took his own life. I immediately called my sponsor and I said, look, what do I do? And he goes, you leave. We're going to call the police, but you need to leave. You don't need to be there and see that. And it pains me to say today that one other guy who was just up here to visit me is still sober, and 2 of them took their own life, and the other one we lost contact with. It was an eye-opening to see that this is no longer a joke. I can't sit in a meeting and tell jokes and think that just because people walk through the door and they put on a good smile that they're doing okay. I see this a lot, and I see this a lot up here, and I've shared this in meetings. We're good actors. I can be in the worst pain in the world and walk into an AA meeting and put on a smile and a happy face for 55 minutes, 60 minutes, and then leave and go home and feel depressed and all alone again. When I put my hand out and I join that 2020 club where I'm there 20 minutes before and 20 minutes after, people get to know me, my guard gets down, and they know when I'm doing okay and when I'm not, and they can call me out on it. I tell everybody that I'm close to or in a meeting, you have every permission after I share, after the meeting in the hall, to say, hey, I heard you say this, and is everything okay? Because sometimes I don't know, but the people around me seem to know. So fast forward to I get through the 12 steps with this sponsor, and I get another sponsor because this guy had moved away, and this guy's phenomenal, and he gets me involved in conferences and speaking engagements where I'm given a 10-minute lead, he's given a 50-minute lead, and I'm still at this same job. No, excuse me, I left that job. I'm at a different company. But the owner of the last company that I was with has been calling me saying one of the guys that you were with is has a real problem with alcohol and he's drinking himself to death. Can you help? I talked to my new sponsor, Jerry. I said, you know, what do we do? And he says, we do a 12-step call. We grab some guys. We do a 12-step call with them. We do this 4 or 5 times trying to help him. The last time I remember, we took this guy to another city to a rehab. They didn't have a detox. We drop him at the detox. We go around the corner to the Flock restaurant. We're sitting there getting ready to have pancakes and eggs. And here comes this gentleman's name was Vince. Here comes Vince walking past the window in the pajamas that they give you, on backwards, with his butt hanging out. And he's getting on a bus to go back to town. And I said to Jerry in a panic, should we stop him? He goes, that's not our job. We pray for him. We've done what we were supposed to do. Well, I'm telling you the story to tell you the rest of it. We end up going to our home group meeting. Vince finds his way. His parents and brother get him into a inpatient treatment, and they're going to bring the bus over to the home group meeting that I'm now part of, a Live and Sober meeting in Naples, Florida. Jerry and I have a speaking engagement, so we go to Sarasota to do the speaking engagement, and I'm just doing the 10-minute lead, so it works out for me. Well, Jerry's phone rings just before he goes up, and he gets a call from his brother and says, you're not going to believe it. And he had a twin brother. He gets a call from his twin brother who's back at the home group. He says that they came here with the rehab bus, and this big, tall guy, real red face, telling this joke, just fell over backwards, and they rushed him to the hospital. Well, Jerry does this talk, and he gets down, and we're 45 minutes away, and he calls him back, and he says, what's going on? He says, was that guy's name Vince by chance? He goes, yeah, he was on the David Lawrence bus. So now, same guy, same Vince. I get a phone call from Vince's mom. We're at the hospital. Can you please, Vince wants to see you. Can you please come here? So Jerry and I drive straight there. Walk upstairs. We take the elevator upstairs. I get off the elevator. There's his wife, his girlfriend, his wife and his son. They were about to get divorced, and I knew her from the business I was in. His girlfriend, his mom and dad, who I had yet to meet yet, and some other guy. And Vince is in ICU with his belly swollen 2.5 feet. I mean, it was incredible. And they had a tube running in his head, draining fluids. And what had happened, he had an aneurysm and his liver was given out. So his mom asked me to go in the room and pray with him and say hi to see if Vince will respond to my voice. I go in there with the mom and dad, and keep in mind, I just met them. And I'm standing there, and it's the dad, the mom, me, the stranger I don't know, and some doctor. And I'm trying to talk to Vince, and of course, it's doing no good. And we walk out in the hall, and mom's crying, and the wife comes over, and she's crying. And the mom says to this other doctor that comes over, there's got to be something you can do. He says, there's nothing we can do. Your son is, he's not there. We need to cease our activities and, essentially stop the life support. And she said, she's crying, rightly so. And I want a second opinion. So they bring another doctor in because now she's hysterical and the dad's trying to calm her down. And the other doctor comes over and says, look, we will call the leading neurosurgeon in Florida. He's out of Tampa, and see what he says. And the other guy, who I have no idea who he is, that was in the room with us, says, who are you going to call? She says, well, we're going to call Dr. Nagroski, Robert Nagroski. And he turns and says, Mom, they're going to try to call me. I can't save my brother. He's gone. I'm there with the leading neurosurgeon in Florida, whose brother has just poisoned himself through alcohol and is about to lose his life, and I have no idea why. And I'm there with my sponsor, and I'm in awe. And we leave, and I said, I don't understand why I had to see that. And he says, at some point it will become clear to you, but this is again what this disease does to people. You know, a little too late that he tried to get help. And it also taught me that I can't help and I can't save anyone. All I can do is be the best person I can be and not drink and try to carry this message. Incredible lesson. I tell you that to tell you the next thing. We left. We had my wife and I, we're still married. We're 28 years in. She's 29 years sober, and I'm a little over 28. So we've been together and sober the whole time. My wife and I have our second child, and we decide we're going to move closer to my job, which is relocated up another city, about 45 minutes away. Well, at this point, I'm tired of working for this guy. I want to start my own company. We open up our own place. Day one, hurricane comes through, floods everything out. We're standing in a foot of water. Somehow, we're the only one in town that still has power, and we're still doing business. So my higher power is making sure that everything's going to be okay. He's showing me that you're doing the right thing. You're carrying the message. You're doing the service work. You're trying to live a good, clean life. I've got this. At least that's the way that I saw it. So we had a pretty busy day. And rightly so, everybody else in town that's going through this is almost, they're shut down, about out of business. But for some reason, things are going well for me. And I say for some reason, I know the answer. That's because I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't say no. And I reach my hand out, and I reach for God every chance I can. I ask for help, and I thank Him. And things seem to fall into place. Well, fast forward a couple of months, my wife's mom is sick, and we're going to fly up to Georgia to meet them. And I'm going to go back to Naples, again, 45 minutes away, to meet my sponsee, who's become a real good friend, to have lunch. I'm down there having lunch with them. My phone rings. It's the police. My wife was just involved in an accident, and they took my wife and oldest daughter in one ambulance, and then my youngest daughter in another ambulance who wasn't breathing to the hospital. And I'm sitting here with my good friend Rick, who's a year sober more than me, so he's 29 years now. I'm maybe 30. I'm sitting there with him, and I says, I've got to go. And he says, what's going on? I said, they just rushed Lynn, Shannon, and Hannah's not breathing to the hospital. I've got to go. I jumped in this Mustang. I remember getting a phone call again now by the police officer saying, look, we don't need to bring you to the hospital. It's either just drive safe. There's nothing you can do. It should have been a 45-minute drive. I think I made it in 22 minutes. I did as fast as I could down breakdown lanes, freaking out the whole time. I made it to the hospital. I walked inside, frantic. They told me I couldn't see anybody. They tried to, calm me down, and I walked back outside. And keep in mind that I was flying when I went there. I walked back outside, and here's my sponsor and 8 other people waiting outside. AA was there to hold me up. I didn't ask them to be there. I surely needed them there, but I had no idea they were going to be there. So they took me back, and I saw my oldest, and she was just coming out of, she had got knocked unconscious. She was just waking up, and she said, Dad, what's going on? Can this really be happening? I said, it's going to be okay. She had a mark on her face from one of the seat belts. And I said, I got to go check on Mom. And my wife was in the next room, and she had a bruised rib, and she had been knocked out, but she was okay. And of course, she was freaking out. And I said, where's my youngest, Hannah? And they said, she's upstairs. They're getting ready to airlift her to a trauma center. I said, I need to see her. And they said, well, we need you to sign this that says that we can bore a hole into her brain to relieve some pressure so she can make the med flight. She's only 6 in a few months. course, they do that. They stick her in a helicopter, or they're getting ready to. And I said, "Where are we going?" They're going to Tampa. And I said, "Okay, I'll meet you there." And I says, "There's nothing you can do. Don't get in an accident." And I run downstairs and I kiss my wife. I said, "They're taking her to Tampa. I've got to go." I walk through the doors and there's now it's like 12 people from AA there. I'm like, excuse me. My sponsor says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I got to go to Tampa. They're taking my youngest there. It doesn't look good." And he said, "I'm driving." Excuse me. So I get in the car with him, and I think it was an hour and a half drive. We probably made it an hour and 15 minutes. We actually beat the helicopter there. My wife was brought up later that day by her sponsor, and my oldest was taken to my sister's house. Well, we spent 28 days in ICU with her, and they basically told us there's nothing more we can do. They're going to send her home in an ambulance. She went from a happy, loving, running, jumping, talking to now, uh, for she lived from 6.5 to just a few days shy of 21 years. So she was with us 14 years. In those 14 years, she never made a sound. She couldn't eat. She could breathe on her own. We fed her through a tube. She had multiple seizures. She couldn't hold her head up. She was 100% care. Keep in mind, through all of this, my wife and myself stayed sober. Again, the message is don't drink no matter what, right? Through all that, we had people from AA come to our houses, offer to help, offer to go get groceries, offer to sit so that we could go do something. When you're tied up in something like that, the poor girl was 27 medications a day, all throughout the day. There was nights that, you didn't sleep. I would go to work and work a 12, 14-hour day and go home, and my wife would pass out and I would take over. And needless to say, our oldest had a lot of mental issues going on because she was a survivor, and yeah, it was ugly. Anyway, um, I was fortunate enough to be plugged into Alcoholics Anonymous and have my higher power carrying me. He no longer walked with me. He no longer had to show me the way. He had to carry me because I was numb. I had no idea what I was supposed to do, what was next. I learned the hard way. Don't say I can't get any worse, because it does. Don't ask what's next, because you may not like what's coming. Uh, but through all that, I learned the valuable lesson of staying plugged in, staying centered, and giving back. So she passed. I want to kind of speed up to the end. She passed. We sold our business. We moved to East Tennessee. Walked into a meeting in East Tennessee, an AA meeting, and a gentleman, as we walked through the door, turns around and says, "You're new. My name's Glenn. Welcome to the meeting." I said, "I'm Scott. I'm an alcoholic." And immediately I knew I was home. I go across the country doing charity stuff for a family. And no matter where I go, I walk into a room at Alcoholics Anonymous, I know I'm home. Something magical happens when I cross the threshold of the door of AA and walk into a meeting room. All of a sudden, all those problems that I'm carrying, I can leave outside that door. And I can go inside and I can talk to one of you. I can connect with one of you. I can feel your pain. I can feel your triumphs. And I'm able to, I call it my spiritual vitamin. I'm able to get my spiritual vitamin. I'm able to hear and I'm able to see with my eyes my higher power working in other people's lives. And it's amazing. One of the best gifts I was given when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I sponsor quite a few guys, is when you're working with someone and that light flicks and you see it in their eyes, it's almost like seeing stars, or like those old cartoons where all of a sudden the eyes go woo, woo. It's like that. And you just see it, and you see their life changing, and you see their attitude changing, and you start thinking, I'm so happy that you get this. But I've learned this through the course of owning our business for 20 years. We've employed a lot of recovering alcoholics and addicts, and I've buried a lot. I've learned that this program isn't for everybody that needs it. It's only for the ones that want it and continue to want it. I have to stay open-minded. I have to stay teachable. And I have to put my hand out no matter what. Do not refuse anything. Glenn sent me the text this morning about uh, speaking today. And again, it's my honor to do this. My plate was full. I had to call him at 11:33 and say, I may be a couple minutes late. I pulled in my driveway at 11:59 to run inside to do this. My wife has something, she's trying to volunteer at a sober center, and you have to go through all these hoops. So I had to take her to the other side of town. But I knew because I was doing the right things and I was guided by my higher power that I was going to be right on time. I was going to be able to share my experience, strength, and hope, and be able to fulfill the commitment that was asked of me because I was taught that. When somebody asks for help or somebody asks you to do something in Alcoholics Anonymous, you do not say no. You say yes and when. I live by that. I try to teach my guys that. I try to teach them about the traditions. I try to take them through the steps. And every time that I do, I learn something more about me. And I don't know about you guys, but for whatever reason, that big book, every time I go back through it, it seems like they've rearranged sentences or words because I get more out of it, right? I have a good friend that says that I now have the ability to see just the words and not the blank spots. And it all becomes clear to me that that was written about me. And that describes who I am. That describes my insecurities, describes how I feel when I'm sitting alone at night and I think like the world is against me. But I'm not alone, and I don't have to do this myself. So I say again, it's my honor to be able to share this with you. I hope I didn't ramble too much. It's been a long time since I've been able to speak at a speaker meeting, but I'm honored to be here. And my message is don't drink no matter what. Get your butt to a meeting, and if asked, say yes. Thank you.